If my answers frighten you, Vincent, then you should cease asking scary questions.
Welcome to the Rockstar Principles Podcast, coming straight to you from Rock and Roll, USA, covering the latest and greatest in educational leadership trends, news, and awesomeness for principals all over the world. Now, here are your hosts, the boss, John Ross, and the Doctor of Proctors, Nick Indeglio.
Welcome back to the Rockstar Principles Podcast. We're going to change things up on you a little bit here. Normally, we like to pull articles off the interwebs for you to check out. But this time, we're actually going to direct you right to a website. There's a website called Battling for the Soul of Education, right? Is that the website?
Correct.
Battling for the Soul of Education. If you just type that in, it'll come up to a website, and then on the website they have what appears to be a white paper or some sort of paper that they've put together called Battling for the Soul of Education, moving beyond school reform to educational transformation. This is one of those things that I stumbled upon somehow, and I bookmarked it on my phone, and as we sat down to work on the podcast here, it just kind of came up on my bookmarks on my phone. So I thought we'd kind of take a look at it. It's an 86-page paper, so we are not going to bore you by going through the entire thing. But as you can tell by the title, they're talking about some major educational reform, and there's a couple of some of the more salient points that they make in the article, analogies that kind of jumped out at me, and I think Nick has one as well. The first thing that I liked. By the way, let me scroll back here for a second. It is this is put together by three groups. Yeah, and it is battlingforthesoulofeducation.org is the website. And it was put together by Education 2000, the 21st Century Learning Initiative, and Born to Learn, as opposed to Born to Run for all you Bruce fans out there. Born to run. I know. As soon as the words came out of my mouth, I knew that there was a song coming. So right off the bat, early on in this paper, there's a heading, and it says, "What kind of education for what kind of world?" And they posed a question in this section: do we want our children to grow up as battery hens or free-range chickens? Battery hens, a term I had really never heard of before. But what they're talking about is if you take, I'm assuming battery hens are like the hens that just sit on the nest all the time and they just pop out the eggs and the eggs roll down the conveyor belt and come out the other end, as opposed to the free-range chickens that kind of have room to exercise and move around and explore. So they make that analogy about how if you took a group of battery hens and suddenly release them onto a free range, how they would really have a difficult time adapting, how their skill set, while limited, is focused on what they're used to doing, sitting on the nest and kind of popping eggs out. And the roaming around and having the space to explore is something that they're really not used to. And they're talking about how in education, if we continue to produce this model based on the Industrial Revolution, if you think about it, about bell schedules and moving around from place to place according to a schedule, and then you take kids from that model and put them in to a world where they're free range. They're used to being battery hens, and then you give them a free range world, which I'm sure is something we'd all want for our kids. It's kind of tough for them to adapt and survive in that world when they're so used to having things structured. I think of even for myself going from high school to college, and the whole concept and idea of being able to come and go from classes as you please, and being able to go to class or not go to class, and being able to have kind of the freedom that you have in college when you're so used to having someone else provide the structure for you. When that structure suddenly disappears, sometimes folks make the wrong decisions. So, whether it's going on to the college world or even right into the workforce, if you're raising battery hens, they're going to have a hard time in the world of the free-range chicken.
That's a good analogy to look at in terms of what the early points of the 80-page paper is trying to make, as they're setting themselves up to describe a whole new vision of education, and they're really trying to paint the picture of how bad things are. I mean, you could say to some degree. I mean, look at it, we're still there. You know, we're still sitting in we're still sitting in the industrial revolution model. Look at a very simple example. In our district right now, the 6th grade center building, which you've heard us talk about, is opening next year. They're going to have synchronized clocks, which doesn't sound like much, but none of our buildings in the district have that right now.
Yeah.
And they're getting rid of bells, which is something that John and I have wanted to do, or at least I know I have. I think you're
No, I have too. Yeah, I actually, my previous school, we did not have bells, although we did have a schedule.
Right.
There weren't bells.
And the idea behind that is, you know, we're a middle school, and the middle school concept is that, you know, teams have, there's teams for a reason, and you have team time, and you should be able to use that to extend certain activities or classes when you want, and to, you know, use the flexibility of the middle school concept to, you know, revolutionize education. Well, we had one day where the system shorted and the bells were off. And I was, no joke, I was walking down a particular hallway, one particular grade level, and you would have thought the world had ended. There were teachers running out of their doors asking what we were going to do because the bells didn't work.
Did you ever see this Saturday Night Live skit?
Yes.
Where the teleprompter goes down?
And by the end they're eating each other, and it's like anarchy. That's a great skit.
Yeah, Will Ferrell, I remember, was in it. I think David Allen Greer was in it. I think he was the host that week. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that was funny.
It was a morning cup of Joe or something.
Yeah. One of those goofy morning shows that were taken off.
That's a great
skit.
Yeah. But anyway,
sorry, I derailed you there.
This was pretty close to it.
That's exactly what I thought of when you said that.
So finally, and I kid you not when I say, like, there were at least 6 or 7 teachers in the hallways, like, freaking out, and one of them said to me, you know, well, can you get on the PA system and announce, you know, the class changes? And it just kind of dawned on me, like, these people have watches. I mean, how hard is it? They're kids. They know what to do. You know, switch classes. This is a problem we can solve.
The bell didn't ring.
The bell didn't ring.
We can't switch unless someone tells us to switch.
The bells aren't ringing. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make with that is very simple, actually. Like, that's where we are. How can we move so far ahead and revolutionize when we're still stuck in the bells aren't ringing? We need bells. We need bells.
And it's a scary concept, I know. You know, I think about the model that the STEM Academy in our district has, the number 1 ranked high school in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But you think about the freedom that the kids there have, and how they're able to they have large chunks of their day where they kind of set the agenda for what they're doing. They're going to work in groups. They're going to get together with their partner groups and go find a space to work on projects together. Are they going to go down to the cafeteria because actually eating when you're hungry, as opposed to eating because a schedule tells you it's time to eat.
Time out.
Mind exploding.
So high school age kids can choose to eat food when they are hungry.
But believe it or not, it's possible. Wow. Again, think about, you know, when a year later you go to college, there isn't a set time for your lunch. I imagine there must be freshmen on college campuses all over America just sitting in their rooms not eating because they don't have
lunch.
They're looking at their schedule and they don't see lunch.
Where's lunch?
So they must think, I guess I don't get to eat lunch, even though I have 3 hours in between my morning class and my afternoon class.
I remember my first day in the dining commons, and it was before I had met my roommate and knew what to do and everything. And so I went to it was dinner. I think it was dinner by myself, and I walked into the.
Is that main campus?
This is main campus. Yeah, this is East Hall dining commons.
Yeah.
And it was greater than any buffet I had ever seen. And then I realized I can have as much as I want. I can stay as long as I want. I couldn't just
You could, because you were so
Yeah.
used to
Yeah.
going through a line. Think about the whole concept. Oh, anyway, we're going to digress if we spend too long on that.
But just those are good examples of. So very close to that part of the article where they talk about battery hens and free range chickens is a section titled "Do you teachers realize how boring you are?" And let me just give you the rundown.
Immediately,
on
every
it.
teacher listening to our podcast has
Shut
just
us
clicked it
off.
off
Yeah.
as soon as they heard it.
Give it a break. Give it us a chance, though. Okay. Such frustration is forever boiling over, as it did a large meeting of teachers in Toronto in 2004. Two 15-year-olds turned on the teachers and said, "Do you teachers realize how boring you are?" Stunned by such a direct criticism, the teachers listened intently as one of the girls went on. "You treat education like a TV dinner. You tell us to go to a freezer, pull out a box, read the instructions carefully, take off the wrapping, puncture the cellophane, then set the microwave for the right time. If we follow the instructions carefully, we'll get full marks. But that's so boring. What would be more interesting would be to make up our own recipe, mixing different ingredients we had chosen. Then if it didn't work, we would change the recipe slightly and keep trying until we had got a recipe that tasted really good. That kind of learning would be fun and make us think. At the moment, we're being taught to fit into rather than shape our world. Such TV dinner teaching produces battery hens, an undernourished landscape, and the perpetuation of the system just described."
So immediate reactions to that. I mean, I think first of Alfie Kohn, Schools Our Children Deserve, which is one of my favorite all-time education books. I don't agree with everything Kohn says. He's a little too far to that extreme for me, but a large majority of it is just, that's an outstanding, from my perspective at least, educational book. The Schools Our Children Deserve, and it's 15 years old, but it holds up.
Right in line with John Taylor Gatto's Dumbing Down Education. And same concept, same ideas, same gist. Again, he's a bit further out there than
But I think you have to be, and that's why I enjoy Kohn, because I think
you're right.
in order to get it's the throw spaghetti against the wall thing. Put everything out there. Let's examine every possible scenario that we could do to make schools better, and let's pick from that and decide which ones we think work.
Right.
I also think of, I can't remember the author, but when we read Inevitable a couple of years ago,
Mass Customized Learning.
Mass Customized Learning. That book just changed my life.
Yeah.
When I read that book, and again, an outstanding book.
One of our earlier podcasts, we covered a bit of it. So
did we?
Yeah.
Okay. But this whole concept, once you get past the do you teachers realize how boring you are part, they go on to talk about how politicians now, the way they talk, they're talking about accountability and more testing. And I think frequently about how I hear, and I agree to a large extent, from teachers, not just in my building, but teachers anywhere I go, talking to teachers about how we're testing them too much, and there's too much teaching to the test, quote unquote, which is completely bogus idea anymore. But anyway, and I say, okay, well, what should the alternative be? Should we go back to the late 80s, early 90s model of let me just come in every day and shut my door and don't anybody bother me?
And do whatever I want.
Right.
Teach what I like.
Yeah, which I can't believe, but there are people that are actually out there.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start talking about, what, you're right. I agree with you. There's too much testing. We need to tailor. We need to pull it back. Too much standardization. Too much of the assessing of kids. Let's look at some of these things, and you bring things in like this. Teachers say, a lot of people in education say, oh, well, now that's too far. Now you've gone too far. We can't give them that much freedom. We can't, you know what I mean? To me, it's like, well, you don't want it to be standardized. You don't want kids tested all the time. You don't want Common Core. You don't want, all of these things that politicians are calling for. Well, the way to fight that, from my perspective at least, is for all of us to get on the same page about what we do want. And I think what we should be saying, what we do want, is we want these kinds of outside the box kind of thinking. We can't turn to people that are saying we need more accountability and say, no, we need to make things like they were in 1988. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the answer, because then you're going to get results like you got in 1988.
Yep.
Then you're going to go back to a nation at risk, and you're going to go back to, you know, the whole No Child Left Behind, which occurred later. I mean, you have to have some kind of new idea as a solution to the over-testing environment. You can't just say, let's let things get back to the way they used to be.
And you look at, it's like, what is the outcome? You know, you were talking late 80s, look at the early 90s to mid 90s, outcomes-based education. What's the outcome we're really looking for? You know, in the end, what are we trying to do? We're trying to produce strong citizens, people with character, people who can think outside the box, critical thinkers. And do I think the testing system as it's set up in Pennsylvania right now is measuring that? No, but it's a step in the right direction. We talked about PVAS last week. Step in the right direction. Flaws, yes. General idea of trying to do better than we did before. You know, initially Pennsylvania just measured solely school progress on PSSA scores. Now we've got a model that takes into account PVAS, the value-added growth. It's more. We're trying to get there. However, what we do inside of our schools and our districts and our classrooms, it can evolve. We're not teaching to the test. We're teaching to the standards. The standards are good. I mean, if you could look from 1950 to now, and I don't think the standards have changed all that much in terms of what is being taught. Here's the content. Here's the curriculum. However, we need to. How deep are we going to go with the curriculum? You know, the one thing that's good about the Common Core, and people don't talk about this, and I get lost in the criticisms, and the criticisms are all of the math, the Singapore math, this, that, and the other thing. It's depth of knowledge, and it's how deep can you go. It's similar to Bloom's taxonomy. You know, the level of questioning, your synthesis and your evaluation, and the analysis pieces. We can do those things. However, I think it's a convenient excuse to say, no, we have to teach to the test. Well, we don't have to. We're teaching the standards. That's going to prepare us for the test. Yeah, you do some test prep. You know, you have to. The kids should be familiar. It's only fair that they understand how to write a response for an open-ended. What does a selected response question look like? They got to know those things. Sure. But we don't have to spend all of our time on that, and we're not. The good teachers aren't doing that. No. And I'll get off the soapbox in 1 second, but you were talking about it earlier with shutting the door, and we just want to do what we've always done. So why are you in education? Are you there because it seemed like a good job, the benefits are good, it's not a bad paycheck, you get your summers off? If those play into it, you know, or you wanted to play teacher, you wanted to be the sage on the stage, those are your reasons. We're not there anymore. You can't survive in a profession.
It's funny you say that, because I one part a little bit, I know I read more of this website than you did, but I was just looking for it while you were talking, and I found it. The one suggestion, so they don't just come out, this is what I like about this paper, they don't just come out and bash and say, you know, quit your complaining. They actually have ideas. Yeah. And well, first they make the point, we're in danger of becoming so overtaught that we will lose the art of thinking for ourselves. So overtaught that we will lose the art of thinking for ourselves. And their suggestion on how to fix this is something they call cognitive apprenticeship as the new model. And just as you just say, the role of the teacher has to change from sage on the stage to guide on the side. Cognitive apprenticeship suggests that learning involves the progressive deepening of early understandings and the joining together of what had earlier been separate, disconnected ideas. It is through experience mixed with reflection that humans weave their own experiences and knowledge of the world into unique patterns. Again, that's like, I would print that on every t-shirt if it would fit. Thor is like chewing your dog. I don't know what he's chewing on. He's got something.
Oh, Thor, come on, that's a wire, buddy. You don't need to be that.
Thor's going to get electrocuted. He keeps chewing. But cognitive apprenticeship, I like this idea. The more I read about it, what they're suggesting, I like it because it's not, I don't know that it's new. I don't know that it's a new idea, but it's giving a name to it. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to start using that a lot, the term cognitive apprenticeship, because that's really, to me, what teaching has to become.
It's interesting because I was talking about John Taylor Gatto a few minutes ago, and his biggest, well, no, I shouldn't say that because I just can't judge, but one of the things he speaks to is prior to the Industrial Revolution. He goes back to European countries when you had towns, cities, small communities prior to, the boom. And the way education worked was, you had some primary schooling, but then you took an apprenticeship. So if you were interested in being a blacksmith, by the time you were probably close to what high school age would be considered, you learned your trade.
Right.
Now, trade is I know, a bad word or whatever, but the point being, you picked an area of expertise that you had a passion for. Goes to our conversation about Jim Collins the other night, and you'll hear that later in the podcast. But that's what they wanted to do. There was a need for it.
Right.
We don't have that anymore. However, it's coming back in the form of these magnets with STEM initiatives. You look at the STEM programs, isn't that really what it is, but still under the guise of a brick and a mortar? You're learning. You're learning to be an engineer. You're learning to be a mathematician.
Right.
So that's where there are initiatives pushing us back in that direction, and to a large degree, I think it's probably reports like this and organizations like this that are bringing us there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we kind of beat that to death. Although it is 86 pages, it goes on. There's a lot more depth in this paper, and something I would recommend checking out. Once again, it's battlingforthesoulofeducation.org is the website, and you'll see the PDF right there on our main website. If you check it out, let us know what you think. Hit us up on Twitter at rockstarprinciples.com on our website. Anything all like that, check us out. We'll be right back with more of the Rockstar Principles podcast.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
Come on, you guys. It's only a little. A hungry giant.
Hungry for a big honey taste.
Big taste. Honeycomb. Big taste. Honeycomb big. Yeah.
It's not small.
No. Honeycomb's got a big honey taste. Big crunch for a big bite. Honeycomb cereal. Part of this big, complete breakfast. Honeycomb's a big bite.
And here we are with the Rockstar Principles podcast. Jon and Nick coming to you from, we're at Casa de Nick for our episode this week. You heard the little intro there. Prior to our intro, a clip from a great movie, not really known as a mob movie, but does have some mob connections to it. That was from Pulp Fiction.
I'm gonna deliver this case to Marcellus. Then, basically, I'm just gonna walk the earth.
What you mean, walk the earth?
Like Caine in Kung Fu. Walk from place to place, meet people, get in adventures.
And how long do you intend to walk the earth?
Till God puts me where he wants me to be.
And what if you don't do that?
If it takes forever, then I'll walk forever.
So you decided to be a bum?
I'll just be Jules, Vincent. No more, no less.
No, Jules, you decided to be a bum.
Look, my friend, this is just where you and I differ.
Jules, look, what happened this morning, man, I agree, it was peculiar. But water into wine,
All shapes and sizes, Vincent.
Talk to me that way, man.
If my answers frighten you, Vincent, then you should cease asking scary questions.
Let me ask you something. When did you make this decision? When you were sitting there eating that muffin?
Well, yeah. I was sitting there eating my muffin and drinking my coffee and replaying the incident in my head when I had what alcoholics refer to as a moment of clarity.
That was part of a scene between Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta in the diner. Jules and what was Travolta's character's name? I just drew a blank. It'll come to me. But they're sitting having a conversation, and Samuel L. Jackson's talking about how he's going to, once they deliver the package to Marcellus, he's going to walk the earth, as he puts it. And they have a back and forth, and Jules winds up saying, what essentially I equate to is don't ask questions that you don't want to hear the answers to. It's a phrase I use quite a lot, actually.
Vinny Vega.
Vinny Vega, there you go. Was John Travolta's character's name. So when you're in a position of leadership, I look at this quote and as something that really occurs quite often, because when you're put in a position where people want answers to questions, sometimes they want a specific answer instead of wanting an answer. They want a specific answer, and when they don't get that answer, they're befuddled, they're confused, they kind of look at you with their head tilted. And I'm not necessarily talking about any one group. I mean, it could come from teachers, it could come from students, it could come from parents. The multitude of people that we get questions from. And sometimes you have to be a straight shooter about it, and you can give them the news softly. I'm not, saying by any stretch that you should be harsh about it, but you're in a position where you got to make decisions, and hard decisions need to get made sometimes, and that calls for good leadership, strong leadership, and that's going to call for giving people answers to questions that they may not want to hear. And you have to be prepared to do that. If you're not prepared to do that, if you're a people pleaser and I'm going to make it okay and everything is going to be all right, good luck with that. But I don't think that's really going to last very long, because eventually those things tend to boomerang on you and create more problems than what you started with. So, Nick, you picked this quote, sent it to me. So why don't you tell me what you were thinking when you came across it?
Well, I think it speaks directly to the fact that as principals, our responsibility is the worldview. And the worldview is the administrative view, the teacher's view, the student view, the parent view, the community view, the big picture view. Central office has a vision, and we have a vision, and the parents have expectations, and the kids have needs, and the teachers have wants, and all of that plays into all of this. Every decision we make as principals, as administrators, is focused on the big picture, the worldview. There's about 100 different angles we're considering when we make any decision, or when we have any bit of information that we interpret within that big picture worldview frame. When people come to us with questions sometimes, like you said, they're expecting an answer sometimes, or they're just looking at the situation through their lens, whatever particular viewpoint they are coming from. When they get the answer from us, they then hear about all these other perspectives and all these other views. And a lot of times that is scary, not exactly what they wanted to hear, and speaks directly to what Samuel Jackson's saying, because think about it. How many times have you had a question brought to you? And how awesome would it be if your answer could actually be, if you don't like the answer to this question, if you don't like the answers, then stop asking the scary questions.
Right.
Because if it's important to you and you haven't thought about what the bigger picture scenarios are, it's gonna shock you. You're not gonna like it. And John Travolta, earlier, right before Samuel Jackson makes a statement, he was pissed off.
Yeah.
He was not happy about where that conversation was going. So to me, it just spoke to, sometimes you're not going to like what you hear. Do you really want to know? Is it that important? If it is, then be prepared for what it might look like.
Yeah, and I think to all of the people in those groups that I mentioned, the teachers, the students, the parents, that may be listening to this, my advice would be that before you approach your principal, you should think about what the possible answers could be, because sometimes people are actually shocked and surprised at the answer you give them, even though to you, as you mentioned, the answer makes from a global perspective, makes complete sense, and people are surprised at how you respond. And I don't know, maybe it just comes from being in the position that we're in, that it just seems second nature to us. And I can flip it around and say I'm never surprised at answers that I get when I ask questions of my superiors. I know when I bring questions to them, I'm now, what I look at it a lot? I look at it, and as I was thinking about it when you first sent me this quote, I kind of equate it to a certain extent, and people I know get a visceral reaction, but to a certain extent, I equate it to discipline referrals.
Okay.
When you have a situation, again, I'm taking out the, kid punches another, the obvious violations, kids with weapons or drugs or violence or things like that. But things with class disruptions and disrespect and things like that, I think sometimes people write them and assume an outcome before they're even done writing it, before the ink is dry on the referral, or before the email is sent with the referral in it. And when they don't get that outcome, they're surprised. And to me, what you have to realize if you're writing a referral is that you are now, in a sense, posing a question to the administrator. You are saying, is this behavior, does this warrant some kind of punishment? You are turning, as I've said to teachers many times, you're giving this situation over to me, and you must accept. You have no choice but to accept.
You've abdicated your power.
Whatever outcome I come up with, you have no choice but to accept it.
Yep.
You can gripe about it, you can complain about it, you can disagree about it. That's not going to change it. That's not going to have me go back and change what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as I've said again several times to people in my building, I'm not a by-the-book, black and white, every single incident has, a page and document that you can refer to that's going to give you an answer kind of disciplinarian. I'm a real life. I'm a, learning, about, you look at what the word discipline is. It's about teaching. It's about learning. It's not about punishment. Discipline and punishment are not necessarily synonymous with each other. So again, it's you can't be surprised. And just as in our position, when we turn things over, if we're going to our boss and we're saying to him, what should we do about this? If he gives an answer we don't like, you've now let the cat out of the bag. You've asked the question. You can't say, "Oh, forget I asked you because I didn't like that answer that you gave me. Forget I even asked." You know what I mean? We've already turned that over to him, and we have to accept whatever the outcome is.
A good example of that, tied specifically to discipline in the quote, would be a discipline situation a long time ago where a teacher brought a discipline type situation to one of the assistant principals. They couldn't get to me. They went to the assistant principal, explained the situation, and the assistant principal said, I would drop this. You're kind of in the wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
You pushed this kid who had known issues.
Not physically pushed.
Not physically,
but
just responsible for creating the scenario that occurred.
Right.
And the teacher at first didn't seem to understand. The assistant principal tried to explain it and said, this is more your fault than the kid's fault. So if it were me, I would let it die. Teacher agreed, and that was thought to be the end of it until the referral wound up on my desk the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So after
you told me about this.
Yeah, after talking to the assistant principal, it came to me anyway. And in a sense, that's asking the question. There's your question. You've now asked the question.
Right.
And the answer obviously is going to be what the answer should be. And I went back and said, I can either put this referral into the trash can, or else the consequences for this discipline write-up are going to be yours, not the kids. Because
and don't get us wrong. And I know you're not saying this.
Not at all.
Teachers have a right to know what happened. Teachers have a right to express their disagreement.
Absolutely.
I'm not at all saying, that don't just let it go once you turn it over to us. If you want to understand why a punishment was given, the best thing you can do is to ask a question rather than just go back in the faculty room and piss and moan about it. I had a very challenging case this year that we were dealing with, and I knew the team was getting frustrated by what they saw as a lack of consequences for this particular individual. And it wasn't until the next time I had them together in a team meeting that I really had the opportunity to explain.
Right.
And they asked the questions, and I had the opportunity to explain what took place and what was going on and what my plan was. And I could see it in their faces as I was doing it. They were like, "Oh, well, that makes so much sense. I'm glad we had this conversation. Yep. We totally misunderstood. We, saw it as this, and we thought maybe this is what was going on." So you have to have those conversations. And again, just like, and I don't want to, sidetrack and just talk about discipline, but there's nothing wrong with asking the question. I don't think we're saying here that, don't ask us questions. I'm just saying that you need to be prepared for whatever the answer may be. And if you don't like that answer, and you have a hard time with that answer, that doesn't mean it should end there. Neither one of us are, this is the end of the lines, let's stop talking about it kind of people. I think we're both more than happy to sit down with somebody and explain, this is how I got my answer. This is how I came about the answer. This is why. This is how it affects kids. This is how it affects our school. That's the lens we're coming from on those types of things. And I'm always happy to have the opportunity to talk to people about that.
And it's again, to me, it still goes, and discipline is a nice specific to use to apply the principle to.
Mm-hmm.
But it to me, it still goes back to needing the ability to understand the bigger lens, the bigger picture. Because you're angry in the moment when that write-up goes through and you put it through and you're only seeing you've been wronged or disrespected and the behavior must be addressed. However, the other parts that might be playing into that might involve your special education department, your truancy officer, your
counseling department,
CYF, your guidance counselors, your crisis counselor, your social worker.
Yeah.
This all plays in. And I'll be the first one to now agree, and I wouldn't have said this maybe a year ago, but I will say this as we're in the tail end of this year now. This has been the most difficult year in terms of parents' expectations of what the school should provide. And here's another example of the quote. There have been times this year where I've had to say to parents, this is outside the purview of what public education does. I can't provide parenting classes for you. I can point you in the right direction. I think we mentioned in an earlier podcast, we had a student come out of a placement, 30 or 60-day placement, and the parents wanted us to provide babysitting until 5:30 when they could pick the kid up. And when we said we couldn't do that, they said, well, then her death will be on your hands, essentially. The day ends at 3 o'clock.
Right.
How are we responsible now for everything? Literally for everything. I'm not saying we shouldn't own it. We shouldn't own the child, but we can only own so much of what the expectation for us is.
Sure.
We can't take them home. We can't do that. So it's been interesting.
It is. It's a rough position, and I guess the last thing I'd say about it is it's not for the faint of heart. And I've spent a lot of time, I think, this year, as you talk about how challenging this year was. I've spent a lot of time just reflecting on the job and not wavering for a moment, not ever doubting for a moment that this is what I want to do, and loving my school and our kids and our staff and everything like that. But just a lot of time just contemplating and thinking and really examining the job of the principal, and just how immensely, cataclysmically, phenomenally, I don't know what other word I can use, different the job has become from even when I started as a principal in 2001. It's unbelievable how different the job has become. And making these kinds of decisions is happening more and more often. Having to answer these kinds of questions that people don't like the answers to seems to almost be a regular occurrence. And it's not easy. It's very, very difficult. And I guess the best thing that we can do, and as I'm thinking about it while we're talking about it, this is why I love doing this podcast so much, is, it's really, really good to talk these things out, to ask if you don't like the answer, right? If you ask a question and you don't like the answer, and again, as the principal, if you have to, it's 11 o'clock. If you have to give an answer that the person's not going to like, don't just let that sit. You know what I mean? Don't just let that pile of poo you just dropped sit there and everyone have to smell it. Do what you need to do to explain to somebody. You can't presume that someone is going to know, as you said, that we have to think from a global perspective and we have to consider a lot of things that they don't know. I think it's really, it's got to be, there has to be middle road. It's incumbent upon us, but I also think it's incumbent upon the teachers to talk it out and try to figure out, and maybe that'll help them learn and grow, and next time they won't ask the question because they'll know what the answer is going to be.
It's funny, we were talking about why loving to do the podcast, and we're talking about scary questions. I was 2 nights ago, had a small, one of those revelations that you already know that kind of hit you. And I think it's worthwhile telling, and we're extending the sequence a little bit, but people like the Mafia segment, so, and it's towards the end of the year, so the principals listening obviously can relate to this.
A lot of people are doing this kind of stuff right now, contemplating, looking back on their year, and thinking about how it went.
It was a twofold situation that occurred, and the first part of it was 2 days ago when we received an email that had a directive in it, and it was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. And one of our comrades, Dr. Dina Wirt, who we interviewed earlier, the Pennsylvania's National Distinguished Principal, so a highly recognized principal in the field, sent an email to some of her closest friends in a joking form that basically said, "Seriously?" and then listed everything we're responsible for between that day and the end of the school year. And you had to laugh.
You do.
You had to laugh.
You do.
And so that was the first part of where I'm heading with this, and just bear with me on my tangent for a moment. After reading that email, a little bit later in the day, I was talking with my current assistant principal, Rob Farina, who's been on the podcast, and we've talked to. And he was letting me know that he was talking to a member of the staff, a staff member in the building who can be kind of two-faced, nice to us, but behind your backs, different stories. And we talked before on the podcast, whenever someone says everyone or most people
Love it. No, here it is. Ready? Ready? I'm not the only one who feels this way.
There you go.
That's the one. That's the kicker. I'm not the only one who feels this way, Nick. You need to know. It's not just me.
It's not just me.
Yeah.
And we already gave you the solution to this, but I don't want to digress too far. Anyway, the quote that was given to Rob was, "Well, there are people in the building, some people in the building who aren't happy with building leadership," and it was the confluence of those two things that brought about a realization for me. It's, again, nothing we don't already know, but it really made me stop and think, and it was simple. The purpose of our jobs to a large degree is student academic achievement. That's a lot of what we're responsible for. And our superiors will tell us that a lot. However, 99% of what we are tasked with throughout the school year has nothing to do with student achievement.
Nope.
And the demands on our time have increased that much, 99%. So I said to myself, if my responsibility is actually student achievement, that's what I'm supposed to do, then what if, as we open these new 7-8 buildings, that's what I set as my moral compass, and I am going to put that before anything and everything to the detriment of everything else, that other 99% of the nonsense. Number one, how long until I get fired?
Right.
But step back from that for a moment. How much do I have to cheat to make that happen? How many rules do I have to break? How many meetings will I have to miss? How many lies would I have to tell? And then the other part of the rapture of this that kind of hit me, and it really made me wonder, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, other administrators, a lot of the professional articles, but just bear with me again, because this was the last part of the revelation, and it was, you read these articles about what good principal leadership is, and it's always time spent in the classroom, being visible in the hallways, spending time in, visibility, supervision by walking around. I'm not discounting the importance or the research or anything, but how the hell is it possible? Because what I'm talking about a second ago, which is what would I have to do in order to be that person, in order to just focus on the things I need to focus on? To do that, I'm going to be violating PDE regulations, district resolutions.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
you
where
can't get blood from a stone?
Where is it going to come from? And are these other people really doing it? So maybe they're working in a district where there's different parameters. Maybe they're cheating. But how do you do it? Like, I can honestly say, I don't do it with any sort of effectiveness that would have a measurable difference anywhere. That's how bad things have been this year in terms of where my time goes. It's there's no solution for me yet other than I know what I would have to do, but can I actually do it?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how much the job has changed. And I think in answer to your question, I think there are people that are able to do it. But I think that they're either in a situation where they have more help than what we have. For instance, my buddy Dan Horan in Haverford, he's the first one to admit he's got 1,300 kids and he's got 3 assistant principals. I got 1,600 kids and I got 2 assistant principals. So, and Dan's a phenomenal leader and he's a better principal than I'll ever be. And he'd be able to do it if he didn't have any assistant principals. So I'm not saying at all that it's dependent on that, but I'm just saying there's situations where people have the resources to be able to do that. But what frustrates me the most are the people that haven't been a principal, and I said this in our segment that you're going to hear a little bit later from our class this week, that haven't been in our shoes for so long that just their response is real matter of fact. Well, you just need to get into classrooms. Why aren't you in classrooms more? Why aren't you doing more instructional leadership? And that, I equate that to me going to a teacher and saying, even though you have all of these things you're supposed to be doing, formative assessments and actual teaching of kids and all the, accountability that we have and study island testing and all the things.
Verify your roster.
And just, right. Yeah. PVOS verification. And just saying to them, well, you just have to get to know your kids better. Like real matter of factly. Because when I was a teacher, I was able to get to know my kids really, really well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I'm so envious of teachers that are able to establish those connections. And God, that's what makes our school great, is that we have so many teachers that are able to do it. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do when you are tasked with so many children that you're responsible for to do so many things. So, it's real easy sitting up in your ivory tower to write about how great it is when principals are in the classroom, or to mention comments about how much better you'd be able to be. Sure, I'm not going to argue with anybody. Yeah, I'd be a better principal if I was in the classrooms more often. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I would. But what am I going to sacrifice to get that? Well, I'm going to have to save all of my paperwork, PVOS roster verification, all of that busy work baloney, and then add on to it the legit stuff like teacher evaluation. I'm going to have to do all that at night. I don't have to be at night. So now I've got a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
And a wife.
And a wife. So I'm just going to go, I'm going to be at work from 6 in the morning and, get home around 5 o'clock at night, and I'm going to walk in the door and I'm going to eat dinner, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start doing work right away. The hell I am.
You can't.
The hell I am.
There's no balance.
That's not going to happen.
That's not balance.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do it when I'm in a crunch. I'll bring work home if I got something. I'm up against a deadline. I'm in a crunch, and I'll spend an hour or so on it at home. But when I'm home, I'm home.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be if I did not have that. And this is the same thing I say to my teachers all the time. If I did not refill that cup, if I did not recharge that battery, or whatever analogy you want to use, then that's what we have to have teachers doing too. If you did not do that, when you came in the next day, you wouldn't be worth a damn. Because you'd be so spent, you'd be so just totally drained that you wouldn't be able to get in the classroom that day, even if you had time set aside to do it.
And you gave the example of that was family balance. Mm-hmm. All right, well, so let's say, okay, instead, I'm going to sacrifice my exercise routine.
Right.
Okay, how unhealthy is that?
Right.
Or I'm going to stay up an hour later and I'm going to get up an hour earlier.
Sure.
How unhealthy is that? Not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, there's so many different...
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
It's whatever it is that you do to recharge your battery. If you take that out of the equation and don't allow for that, and don't recharge that battery, then you're going to be worthless. There's not going to be anything you can do. You're going to be worse than you were before.
Exactly.
So
what good is it
how
doing
did we
those
get off
things?
on this strain from that original quote? I have no idea.
I don't know. It's relevant, though.
Yeah. We're kind of bearing our souls here. It is the end of the year, like you said.
That's true. Yeah, it's good. It's good
coming
time for that.
up on the end of the
And it's episode 40, so you gotta hit with the big stuff.
Hey, the big 4-0.
All right. Well, we'll talk later.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be right back with more of the Rockstar Principles podcast.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
Commercials, we're always doing them for other people. But
Now, something so amazing has happened, John. We've got to talk about it ourselves.
What?
Before, we used to give you all these links. Here's how you get to the episodes. Here's how you get to our Twitter.
I've got them all written down here on my handy-dandy notebook.
Yeah, that's how you find stuff, right?
Right.
No longer.
Wait a minute. What did you do?
Now, you can go to rockstarprinciples.com.
Wait a second. It can't be that easy. Hold on. I'm at my computer.
rockstarprinciples.com.
Look at that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are live on the internet. Well, not really live, but we have a live website on the internet, rockstarprinciples.com. All of your needs for the fans of the Rockstar Principles right here on one website. We've got the different podcast episodes. If you want to listen to them via the website, via iTunes and Stitcher, you can do that. And in fact, Nick even put a player. What is this called? A media player, right?
Media player.
On the website.
Yeah.
And when I hit play here, it goes right. Let me go back to the beginning and see what happens.
Welcome to the Rockstar Principles Podcast.
This is us
Coming straight to you from
listening to us. You're listening to us, listening to us.
It's amazing.
How does that work? Look, wait, let me just skip ahead.
Best platform possible.
Look at that.
Really enhance,
That's Nick talking.
Education.
You can go to a website and listen to Nick talk. And me. There's me talking.
Right.
There's both of us. Wait, I just said right. Is this confusing the heck out of you now?
It's like looking
Okay,
at the
I'll
multiple
stop it.
mirrors.
But yeah, you can play our podcast right there off of the website. What else is on here, Nick?
Oh my God, you name it, it's on here. First of all, you've got, like you said, you can get to our podcast any format you want. You can listen to it from the main website, from iTunes, from Stitcher. You can read some of our editorials. You can look at some of the quotes we post
do editorials?
on Twitter.
I didn't know we were doing. How come you do all the editorials?
You can do an editorial.
I want to do an editorial.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
You can go back there. Yeah, I think we make it open in a new window. Isn't that
Yeah.
cool? You can link to our Storify. When we do our PAESSP chats, you've got that there. And then from the top of the page, you can link to our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn profile, our Twitter page. I mean, it is all.
You can email us.
You can email us.
Drop us a line and leave a message. Our phone number's on there. There's even a little part that's about us. If you'd like to get a little bit more information about Jon and Nick.
Our biographies are up there.
Yes.
But most importantly,
Yes.
let's reference our services page, because this is brand new. You haven't seen this yet, folks. The Rockstar Principles are now beginning to advertise our own services. What can we do for you? Pretty much anything, folks.
Well, really, I mean,
seriously.
we have speaking engagements and consulting services listed here, but, I got a snowblower. You want us to come take you out in the snow? I got kids. I can bring them over. We can rake the leaves in your front yard. We'll do yard work.
Babysit.
Wash your car. We're available. Yeah, hit us up. You've got an idea and, within driving distance of Berks County, Pennsylvania. Unless you want to pay for the airfare. I mean, if you're listening from around the world, obviously the cost will include the airfare for us to come to you. For
the snowblower too.
Well, yeah, I
gonna
would think
cost
you
some
probably
money.
have a snowblower of your own would probably be more economical. But
Yeah, but you put it out there, so now we have to do it if they.
well, I'm saying I'll come and push your snowblower to help get you out. Rather than pay to fly my snowblower to your house, if you have a snowblower, pay for me to fly to your house to push your snowblower.
Maybe we could have that be like an add-on service too. Like, we'll come and consult for you
Right.
at your school.
And then
we'll
just
go
for free,
snowblow.
we'll free, no matter, even if it's in August,
Yeah.
we'll bring our snowblower.
Fantastic. But hey, if you like what we do, we're available for speaking engagements, consulting services, and we're going to be doing a lot of presenting coming up this summer and all through the next year or so.
One engagement we already have, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, we're lined up this July in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's right, for the NAESP conference, the annual National Association of Elementary School Principals Conference. The Rockstar Principals will be speaking in Nashville at that conference. Something to look forward to if you happen to be going that way.
So we're just going to rock the world. We are awesome. I mean,
You, my friend, are the awesome one for setting this incredible website up.
and what is that website? rockstarprinciples.com. But guess what? If you have a mobile device or an iPad and you don't like to try to look at the entire site, which you can at rockstarprinciples.com, then you can go to our mobile site at m.rockstarprinciples.com, and you can look at our mobile site. We're just rocking the world. Because that's what we do, we're rock stars.
I'm looking at our YouTube channel.
Yeah, isn't that pretty cool?
There's a video on there that we made that has 68,000 views.
Yeah, I'd like to see that video keep pulling more views as time goes on.
Well, if the snow keeps up, maybe
True.
people will come back to it again once the snow starts hitting again.
Yeah,
You never know.
I think we
Pretty cool website, ladies and gentlemen. Check it out. Anything else we want to say? For the
Rockstarprinciples.com. Rockstarprinciples.com.
Eat, sleep, rock, repeat.
Hey, Rockstars. All winter long, John and I wanted to see this new Godzilla movie. We saw the preview, people jumping out of the airplanes, the paratroopers and stuff. Looked awesome. You didn't really see much of Godzilla, but that was part of the excitement. It got good advanced reviews. You had Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad in it. I mean, it seemed awesome. So anyway, I went and saw it, and John was at a wedding and he couldn't see it, and he was pretty upset about that. So today we're going to do a new segment, and it's called John Asks Nick Questions About Godzilla, and Nick answers them. So here we go.
This isn't going to be a repeat segment, I guess, is it?
No, it's just
you
a one-off.
kind of pigeonholed us into a topic here.
Yeah.
I
guess we could
just call it, Johnny asks Nick questions about movies he hasn't seen.
We could,
something like that.
Yeah, we could advance
this week, Godzilla is the topic.
This week we featured Godzilla.
So let's see. Question number 1, and I am given the feedback you've given me on the movie. I'm not worried about spoilers, so
okay.
All right. I don't really. I'm gonna wait for the Netflix, I think. What is the genesis of Godzilla in the movie?
Well, you never actually find out.
It's not the nuclear testing. They make it look like it's going to be the nuclear testing in the South Pacific or something like that. It's not it.
No. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
They actually.
You don't want to hear it,
turn it off now.
Turn down. Not
turn
off.
Down.
Turn
yeah,
down.
Turn
for like
down.
10 seconds. Okay. All right. Go.
It turns out the bombings in 1954. They play a riff on it. They kind of harken back to the original movies, and the difference being that they used the bombings in 54 to try to kill Godzilla. He was already alive.
Okay. So do you find out then what the genesis of Godzilla is? He's just appeared.
All you know.
He's not an alien like in Cloverfield. It's not a...
You don't know for sure. You never find out for sure. All you know is that the Mutos, which is the... there's an acronym, MUTOS.
Sounds like an Ultraman thing.
Well, I think that was, again, when it was intended.
We're going way back in the Rockstar...
catalog.
Yeah, talking about Ultraman. That's been a while since we did an Ultraman segment.
But all we know is that these monsters are, in fact, radioactive.
Radioactive. Sorry.
Imagine Dragons. And that's harkening back to an earlier episode with our snow day medley. Yeah. But the reason these animals live at the bottom of the ocean is because they are absorbing ambient radioactivity from the Earth's core. So that's why they're in the deep water.
And that's what causes them to grow to outrageous proportions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2. In the previews, they talk about how, you've told us it was earthquakes, you told us it was tornadoes, we know it wasn't really. Is really the idea that like the government tried to pass off Godzilla attacks as earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes?
Well, sort of. This is one of my major gripes with the movie. The movie was like 2 hours long. Okay, the whole first act of the movie, where you never see Godzilla and you only see one of the bad guy monsters.
See, that's way too long to go without seeing Godzilla, first of all.
Well, and it even goes further.
I want Godzilla within the first 5 minutes.
Well, you don't get him.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you don't get him.
That's an insult.
But what they do is they have this whole storyline with Bryan Cranston and his wife and the nuclear power plant in Japan. Mm-hmm. You literally could have eliminated that whole 45-minute chunk of movie. Mm-hmm. And just established that there was a bad guy monster nesting in a nuclear power plant.
In the what?
The nuclear power plant.
Okay.
Just, nesting there. He's just there he is.
What kind of power plant is it?
Nuclear. Wait, what? Nuclear? What? Am I not pronouncing it right?
You're kind of drifting in the George W. Bush there for a minute. He always got ripped for saying nuclear. Nuclear, I think is the preferred nomenclature for that.
Nuclear man.
Pronunciation.
Superman 4.
I'm sorry.
But anyway, so cut that 45 minutes out of the movie, and then you would have gotten to Godzilla about 25 minutes sooner. Yeah. So that was my big gripe. But yeah, that they do a whole storyline with that. It's not really all that interesting.
And so, since you mentioned it, How exactly does it happen that Bryan Cranston and his wife get separated? Why does she get locked behind the doors? Is there a leak?
Yeah,
A nuclear...
well, they think there's a leak, but it
Okay.
turns out there was never a leak. It was one of the bad guy monsters crashing
Farted.
into the... Basically, I mean, it could have been that. It looks like that with the
passing
wind.
gas. Yeah.
They never really explained that fully.
Okay.
Yeah. Which leads me to another gripe before you ask question 3. There's an organization called Monarch. They're the ones that knew
Why
about
are all these organizations in a Godzilla movie?
I don't know.
Again, Ultraman.
The science
totally
control.
Ultraman. Yeah.
But this organization called Monarch, who knew all about the existence of these creatures, tried to blow them up in 1954. They are on site at the nuclear power plant. I probably said it wrong again. And Bryan Cranston,
You're thinking about that.
after 15 years of research, finally gets to them, right? And he gives them a simple explanation for what's happening that kind of like sets the stage for the 2 bad guy monsters that this organization with millions and trillions of dollars at their disposal couldn't figure out. How stupid could this organization have been when crazy Bryan Cranston could have figured out?
Right.
Once again, eliminate that whole 45-minute chunk. None of it necessary.
Okay. Question number 4. I believe I'm up to. Who eventually destroys Godzilla? Is it Superman, Batman, or the Avengers?
None of the above.
All right. Well, now I've got a problem. I mean, they're all there. Somebody would have called one of them if Godzilla attacked.
Godzilla turns out to be a good guy.
Oh, he's just misunderstood. Was it like the lion with like the thorn in his paw, and he just needed it removed, and he was really nice and he
according to the
guy.
very stereotyped
They make him a pet.
Japanese scientist.
Oh, really?
Very stereotyped Japanese scientist. He explains, and here's gripe number 4.
You're being serious. Godzilla turns out to be a good guy.
Yes.
Stop it. He does not.
I will now. I'm about to tell you.
You're messing with me.
Japanese stereotyped man explains to the U.S. government once they get involved, because the bad guys and Godzilla are heading for the California coast.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to destroy California essentially.
I wouldn't really have a problem with that, but go ahead.
So the U.S. government comes up with a plan. Is it a great plan? No, but it's well thought out. They have an idea.
They're going to put somebody in a Mrs. Godzilla costume.
Well,
like Bugs Bunny. They're going to go the Bugs Bunny route.
That
Try to distract him by dressing in drag and getting him to go to like Australia.
Not quite.
No, okay, sorry.
But you're on the right lines.
Okay.
They are going.
It's probably about as feasible as the
yes.
what actually took place.
Yes, but when you hear the alternative, you'll realize it's almost a brilliant plan. They are going to take a 15 million trigaton bomb, and they're going to take it out several miles into the ocean off the coast of California. The radioactivity from the bomb is going to attract the 2 bad guy monsters and Godzilla, and when they all go to the bomb, the U.S. government's going to blow it up and hope it destroys the 3 monsters. Even though it didn't work in 1954 when they tried it, but they say the weapon is that much stronger, and that would probably work. So then, guess how the U.S. government gets the bomb to California? Do they fly it in? No, they put it on a train. And they put it on a train, and you have a train take it in.
What?
Let's not go there.
A train?
Well, but that's not even the point. I digress.
Is this, the 1860s?
I digress. So, the U.S. government lays out their plan. They've known about the existence of these monsters for maybe 30 minutes at this time. Monarch, the organization that's known about them for 100 years, or however long it's been, they offer the following counter solution. They say, the admiral in the U.S. fleet actually asks him and says, unless you have a better idea, to which he says, Godzilla is an alpha predator. Let them fight.
Nice.
So his solution is, let them destroy California and fight each other, and Godzilla will probably win.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like the end of Man of Steel, where Superman and Lex Luthor fought in Metropolis and basically destroyed the...
General Zod.
Oh, yeah, I said Luthor. That's the next movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was his solution. And Godzilla. So since Godzilla's an alpha predator, he just tries to kill the bad guys. He doesn't like to hurt other people.
Okay. Last question, because we're going on 9 minutes now talking about a movie that you didn't like and I have no desire to see. So I don't know how we're keeping people to hang around this long. Is Godzilla... Do they leave the door open for a sequel?
Yes.
Oh
my God, yes.
Almighty.
Of course they do. Godzilla is at the end of this movie, Godzilla is the hero, and Californians love him, and he's on the news all over the world as the savior.
Where does he live? Now that he's a good guy, do they build him a house somewhere?
He goes back into the ocean.
Oh, he just goes back into the ocean.
Yeah, he has
Do
to go
they have
absorb.
something where they can summon him when they need him now? He's gonna...
No, because he's an alpha predator. So whenever,
okay.
so this is convenient.
So we're just going to trust that he's never going to attack us. We're just going to say,
yeah.
Oh, okay, that worked out great. Thanks, buddy. And just wave him goodbye.
Thank you for not destroying us.
Okay, yeah.
But whenever bad guy monsters come, they don't have to summon him because he's an alpha predator. So he's just going to know, and he'll come and fight the monsters.
Sure he will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, that was said, and it is said, and we're done saying it. So now, that's the end of this segment.
Thanks for tuning into this segment, which is called Jon
asks Nick questions about movies he didn't see. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Yeah.
Thanks for helping RSP top the charts in the Edu podcast world. Keep it real with Twisted Steel and School Appeal.